18 months ago, the pharmacy submitted these peptides thinking, let's get them into the black. Let's show the FDA how safe they are. But the problem is they didn't produce enough compelling evidence to show the safety. How many people over the course of a decade have used BPC 157? He's like, millions. And I said, how many adverse reactions have you ever had? And he's like, zero. So why has it gone into this, identified it as significant safety risk? It's because, the data that they're looking for, apparently it wasn't enough. The FDA, they don't have a hard stop on exactly what the pharmacies need to do, but they've just asked the pharmacies like, hey, until we can get better, get our minds wrapped around these, we need to see, we need to make sure they're safe. That's our job. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Health Accelerator Challenge and curriculum today, community. Really good to have you guys here. I want to see how things have been going for each one of you. We've been covering some in-depth things. We went through the 35-year study, the Swedish Morris cohort, where they found the particular biomarkers that help people live reasonably long lives. Last week, we went through grip strength. How many of you actually improved on your grip strength and did a few things there? And hopefully many of you. And then we've had so many questions come in today and over the last week and a half that today we're going to be talking about some of the new FDA regulations, what they mean. Because a lot of people are like, oh, can we still get peptides? Because, and I'll share with each one of you what's kind of transpired in the peptide world and some of the regulations. There's still a lot that we don't know, but what we are seeing is that there's some changes that will take place. But I can tell you that there's a lot of work going on the back end, and I'm working with some phenomenal leaders in the industry. I just hosted a really cool Go Wellness event. So I had all of our doctors in town, and several, virtually joined us. We had amazing speakers, but I do want to cover some of the FDA criteria, and I can even, I'll pull up the official document so you guys can see it as we go. But how many of you, by a show of hands, have actually looked into that? And maybe you've heard about some of the new rulings from the FDA on bulk substances. So yes, and I know a few of you asked, and so we're going to cover that today. But before we jump in, we've got some really exciting things coming up. For those of you who are in Texas, our fun Texan clients, we're going to be in Austin October 26th and 27th, and we're doing a longevity retreat there. We've got Dr. Steinle coming, so she'll be doing regenerative medicine treatments. For those of you who'd like it, we are officially, our day one is, I think we've only got 2 seats left on the Thursday. And then on the Friday, we've got, I think, 10 or 12 last time I looked, but that was this morning. So if you do live in Texas, you want to join us, love to have you there. We're going to be going a deep dive into all things longevity, biohacking, all the latest peptides. We're going to be talking about different ways you can improve your breathing capacity and carbon dioxide. We're also going to show you some of the latest research that I learned at the Da Vinci 50 with gene targeting therapies. And then you're going to have cool masterminds. So you entrepreneurs, you'll have a chance to meet some really amazing people. So let me know. You can plug it in the chat box. It's just me tonight. If you have questions that come through, I'll try to and field those best I can. And then tomorrow we're hosting our very own East West longevity retreat, and I'm really excited to have there's a few of you flying in. So really excited to have you there. And if you want to join us tomorrow, and even if it's for a couple hours, just let us know, and we'd love to share some love with you. I just met with one of my clients today, and he said, meeting you guys in person, because he was just out last week, and he said, I really loved working with you. And he'd been working with us for about 9 months, but he said, meeting you guys in person, it was an 11 out of 10 experience. He said, you guys, like, everything was just so, thoughtful, and everyone was so gracious and kind. So it's really nice to hear that about the team there. They're pretty amazing. Unless you come on a Tuesday and everyone's in a bad mood, then your experience is going to be horrible. But any other day, you guys are going to do just fine. Okay, just joking. Any day you come, it's going to be amazing. So, let's jump into this. So, for those of you who are lawyers, great. Correct me on anything if I misstate. I'm not a lawyer, but I have spoken to lawyers about this, pharmacists, people who are in the regulatory boards, because this is something that's very confusing. And so as you look at peptides, one of the beautiful things about peptides is they're naturally occurring in the body. But just like anything else that's naturally occurring, I mean, if you have too much fluoride, which fluoride naturally exists in our body, too much of it can cause damage, and it can be really dangerous to your thyroid, really dangerous to your mitochondria. It can be incredibly toxic. It's a halogen molecule. So the FDA, their job, if you think of it, the FDA was largely formed, from best of my knowledge, was in the 1950s, when there was primarily it was the opiate crisis, and the FDA started realizing that people, these drug manufacturers are making claims, and food manufacturers were putting additives and substances in the food that they realized was dangerous to society. And so the FDA was actually formed as a way to protect the public. And the FDA is not, it does not govern the practice of medicine. And so if you think of the difference of governing the practice of medicine, there's state boards, there's a national board, and then there's state boards. And so as long as you look at the governing agency of each state, and that's where the United States is really interesting, because we have essentially 50 different countries under one. So I misspoke on the Food and Drug Administration. It was 1906. So it's been, and this was actually shortly after what's called the Flexner Report. And if you haven't read that, essentially the Rockefellers are the ones that, they wanted to have a monopoly over medicine, so they started bringing in different chemicals. And what happened in 1906 is there needed to be a regulation of food and drugs, because they found that there was misbranded food, and then there was drugs that weren't accurate. And so the first thing that was established was the Bureau of Chemistry and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then later on, the FDA was officially formed in 1906. And that was the signing. It was June 30th. And so in June 25th of 1938, the expansion of the FDA included the framework for regulating food, drugs, and cosmetics. And so that granted the FDA power to oversee the safety, efficacy, labeling, and manufacturing practices of those products. And so ever since then, today, the FDA is looking at advances in technology, science. They look at healthcare products. And then the real beauty of it is they are meant to protect the public health by ensuring safety, efficacy, and proper labeling through rigorous scientific evaluation and enforcement. So just so you understand that, but there's nothing about the FDA regulates the practice of medicine. In the Constitution of the United States, the 10th Amendment gives you the protection of the client and or patient-doctor relationship. And so things can be prescribed off-label, and then the prescribing physician does need to meet with the governing boards to determine, if there's ever anything that would be kind of outside of the scope of practice, or anything that the board would say, well, where's the data? And so a lot of these peptides that the FDA, they looked at, and this was, as you can see, September 29th, 2023. And there's certain things that made it to category 1, like GHK copper. So that the GHK copper that we're all using on our skin, in the topical application, the FDA says there's no significant safety risks. So you can keep compounding that, and L-theanine even made it. So that's good, because we love L-theanine. But when you look at category 2, this is where the FDA, what they did is they identified significant safety risks with these substances. But if you go deeper into the policy, and as I started digging into the research, there wasn't any, there's no humans that were injured. There was no adverse reactions that ever came up in the literature. And really what happened is there's a pharmacy, and we use them. I don't want to state their name because I don't want anyone being frustrated with them. But and it was told in confidentiality to me, but this pharmacy submitted these agents because peptides, for the most part, the FDA has looked at them and they put it in what's called the generally considered safe category. So they're like, I think we generally consider them safe. But 18 months ago, the pharmacy submitted these peptides thinking, let's get them into the black. Let's show the FDA how safe they are. But the problem is they didn't produce enough compelling evidence to show the safety, even though these peptides like DSIP, for example, the deep sleep inducing peptide, that's a peptide that they have concerns with. But it's a peptide that actually was discovered in 1957. So it's been around for a long time. And I've never heard of anyone having an issue with that. So it's pretty fascinating as you look different categories of these peptides. You've got AOD 9604. They've got that on there, BPC 157. BPC 157, if you looked at the amount of data that supports BPC 157, you'll start to see that millions. And when I was talking to the pharmacist, I'm like, how many of these prescriptions are you filling, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis? How many people over the course of a decade have used BPC 157? He's like, millions. And I said, how many adverse reactions have you ever had? And he's like, 0. So that once again, it's like, why has it gone into this, identified it as significant safety risk? It's because, the data that they're looking for, apparently it wasn't enough. And so I would ask someone at the FDA to maybe go dig in a little deeper. And so we're creating a coalition that actually will show that these substances are actually, not only are they incredibly safe, but they're incredibly effective. And, you can see LL37, CJC 1295, dihexa. Here's the DSIP that I was mentioning there. Imideltide, epitalin was on. Epitalin has been around. I mean, if you look at the research on epitalin, it lengthens telomeres. So it's a telomerase enzyme, and it works on the pineal gland. And you look at the work that was done on the Russian military, and it's just phenomenal at the rates of cancer that just basically went away from the soldiers that were exposed to nuclear reactors in the submarines. It's GHK copper injections of the GHK copper. I mean, which was startling because in Korea, almost 20 years ago, they started using GHK copper to stimulate stem cells. And they found that the GHK copper actually cleaned up the DNA and starts, it upregulates the expression of almost 400 genes that are protective for your body. I mean, and we can go through each one of these. I mean, if you guys have been on the podcast, you probably get tired of all the kind of the science rhetoric, but it's actually really important. Dihexaacetate. I mean, this is it was initially studied as an angiotensive hypertensive medication, and then they realized, oh, people who use it, their brains turn on again, and so it's been studied extensively and it's been shown to be very safe for people who have, early onset with Parkinson's or issues cognitively. And so, you look at these and you say, well, what's going on and what does this mean? But essentially, when you look at this category 2, now these substances, they can change at any time. I mean, the FDA can get some new data and they can say, all right, we're putting them back in category 1, or we will put them in category 1. They weren't really in any of their categories before. It was just kind of like, yeah, they're generally considered safe. They're kind of looked at more like a supplement than anything. But now that they've come into this category 2, this could be, and once again, these were nominated substances that were introduced to the DNA or to the FDA. And so now we're looking at this and saying, well, where do we need to go from here? So here's a category 3 where you can see there's a bunch of stuff on here, and they're placed in category 3 because once again, they're nominated. So this is where, usually it's pharmacies and they're saying, hey, we want these things to be looked at by the FDA so that there's no red flags, so that we can use these substances, these molecules in our products without any issues with the FDA. And you can see that, these are nominated in a category 3, which they classify as nominated without adequate support. And so they're saying we need more data on this. As you can see, zinc's in there, uva ursi, turpentine oils, thymulin acetate, which I love, sodium, skin protection. I mean, there's a bunch of different things that made that category 3 list. And then even some of the like aspergillus, orza enzymes. This would be like a mold that you could use in fermenting products. Pepsin's a common ingredient that we use in enzyme formulas. So the FDA is they put that in more of a biological product. Here's some of the category 1 that are under evaluation. So this is where the FDA is looking at these, and it includes pregnenolone, L-citrulline, melatonin, methylcobalamin. These are all the substances, you can go to pretty much any supplement store and get them. Glutathione, you can see in clomiphene. So it's really just their way of looking at the molecules, making sure they're safe before compounding pharmacies can really go to town and have bulk manufacturing. So there's so many things on here. I won't read them all, but I know you guys are probably now everybody's like, what does this mean? Can we not get our peptides? But here's the bottom line. So yes, we are submitting data to the FDA to show that all of these substances, thymosin beta-4, I mean, I love thymosin beta-4, Selenc, CMAC, these are amazing. Mod-SC. I just did I mentioned you guys, I just spoke at the Da Vinci 50 conference, and the Mod-SC, it is one of the most popular peptides in the longevity space right now because it's like exercise in a bottle. So it's phenomenal. And so really what this means is that, first of all, the FDA could pass, basically a mandate to, approve a vaccine in warp speed fashion, literally in the matter of months, and never had it fully be vetted on, any kind of human trials, which is scary because even the mouse models and the rat models everyone kept saying, hey, this is dangerous. Now that we have the correct data on some of the COVID immunizations, as we're realizing that it may have been more harmful than helpful. And these peptides, the best thing that they have is a really strong track record. And so in order for the FDA, they don't have a hard stop on exactly what the pharmacies need to do, but they've just asked the pharmacies, like, hey, until we can get better, get our minds wrapped around these, we need to see, we need to make sure they're safe. That's our job. And so, and yes, if you read between the lines, and if you have actually done any research on, the Flexner report and, the allopathic medicine taking over and the chemical-based medicines that Western medicine is built on, what you'll see is that the pharmaceutical companies don't like competition. And so they're going to find any sneaky way to remove any of the competition that's out there and ask, to have these compounds being stopped. So first of all, we'll go, what peptides can we use? And I've got, as you could imagine, I've done my due diligence and I've looked at those. And I can share some of those with you. Actually, I'm not going to share all of them because actually I'm just going to leave it at this. There are peptides that are FDA approved to treat certain conditions. So some of the ones that we'll continue to be able to get, no matter what, are like sermorelin, tesamorelin, sarcotropin, SS31, 5-amino-1-MQ, oxytocin, RG3 synapsin, VIP, the tirzepatide and semaglutide. Those are phenomenal. Ganadorelin, and there's several others. But what will happen is, according to the law, because the doctors have the prescriptive authority, and the FDA does not, they don't govern the practice of medicine. The states have not followed the same suit. I'm sure California, they did a long time ago. So a lot of these peptides in California are really hard to produce and manufacture anyways. But what that means is that the compounding pharmacy, until this is the criteria, is until there is a suitable replacement, a therapeutic replacement that can be used, so there's got to be a suitable replacement for BPC 157, for example. And so I was talking to one of our pharmacists today and who just met with his legal team. And I said, well, what's a suitable replacement for BPC 157? Because we all love that. And I couldn't imagine life without BPC or thymosin beta 4. And his response was, well, there's nothing that we know of. So, we'll be able to compound it until there's a suitable replacement. And then, and so as long as he can get the raw materials, that will be good. I said, what about MOD-SC? And he said, well, once again, there's, maybe SS31, but they work on two totally different pathways for the mitochondria. So, SS31 is repairing the damage on the inside of the mitochondria, whereas MOD-SC is more activating sirtuins and NAD to feed the mitochondria. So there's not really a good replacement there either. And the list goes on and virtually all of these peptides. So hopefully that will give us enough time where we have the prescriptive authority. We've got the 10th Amendment. And then as long as we can have great feedback on the peptides. So I hate to ask you guys for a favor, but because I know you're busy and you guys are, have been so amazing. But if there's any feedback you'd like to give on the peptides, and we're putting a coalition together, and so I'm gathering as much data as I can. And pretty soon on the Go Wellness website, you'll see a place where I'm having the pharmacists come together who have been compounding these peptides, and there's only a few. And then all the clinics that are using it, I think, East West have been told that we're one of the top prescribers of peptides. But we need to hear from you too. And so if you guys say, hey, these things have saved my life, they've changed, I wouldn't be able to function properly without these. The FDA needs to hear that. So my big ask to you is let's not let healthcare or the medical complex get in the way of your quality of life, because I've been using these for over a decade, multiple at a time, usually in the teens these days. And so I can't even begin to think about where my health would be without those. And then when I think of all of you, I'm like, holy smokes. People with chronic pain, people with neuropathy. We had Tony, we had one of you. I'm so proud of you. And I don't know if you guys have seen Tony on our social media, but she hiked up to Sunset Peak. She hiked 11,000 feet. When she came in to the office, she couldn't even walk. And so there's just so many really exciting things that can happen. So yeah, any feedback you guys have, I'd love that. And Kelly, so good to have you on. And so you asked savepeptides.org. I think once again, that's a great place where you can actually start putting in some of your petitions. So yeah, I think there's really good things there, because they're doing the same thing we are, which is trying to help preserve the use of peptides. And so please sign the petition there. And what we're doing is we're gathering all the safety data and looking at the amount of peptides that we've actually prescribed over the years, showing safety profiles. That's the real thing the FDA is looking for. Is it safe? And if it's changed your life, we want to know. But yes, thank you, Kelly. Please go to savepeptides.org, and then we will certainly be gathering more data on our Go Wellness website as well. And we're working primarily with the professional organizations to come together, because what big pharma has that we don't, and that compounding pharmacies don't have, is compounding pharmacies don't work together a lot. I mean, they kind of see, they're kind of in their own little bubble. And one of the things that big pharma does is when they have lobbyists and they spend millions, if not billions of dollars in lobbying Congress, and they'll fund campaigns. That's one thing I respected about the Trump campaign, is he took $0 from the pharmaceutical companies. Whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter. I'm just stating a fact. Whereas his opponent, that was a large portion of what she ran on. And then even with the current administration. So I think there's a lot of things so that we don't have this, the restrictions. But the other good news is, as long as the states stay on board, then we're working with local Utah pharmacies, and we're going to every state and working with pharmacies, because the federal government doesn't get involved until something crosses the state line. So even if the FDA, if they end up tightening up their regulations and enforcing it, then and if it doesn't work on having the buffer between the doctor patient prescribing, then what will happen is we'll get the compounding pharmacies inside the states. And as long as the states don't have an issue with it, and the pharmacies aren't shipping it across state lines, then it doesn't become federal. It's similar to this is how it was just explained to me, but it's similar to if you have like if you commit a crime in one state and you cross state lines, then that instantly the FBI gets involved. So it's the same with medicine. So anyway, that is what's going on there. And fortunately, there are several of these peptides that they have made it through all phases of the clinical trials with the FDA. I can tell you the majority of these that are being removed, these peptides are in the process of becoming they're going through all the clinical trials to become a drug, and then they'll be, they'll have some type of patent on it, and they'll have a drug affinity complex, which changes the nature of it. And it's the way that our healthcare system works. And I think right now is a really phenomenal time. There's enough of us, and there's more evidence, more data than we've ever had before. And so I appreciate you guys asking these questions and being really alert to this. I can assure you now that for the foreseeable future, you will be able to get your peptides, and even if we have to modify some things, change up the protocol a bit, we still have the approved peptides, which are phenomenal. But man, there's things like BPC 157 we just don't have a great replacement for. So we do need to fight. We need to I think it goes back to even as far back as George Washington's doctor, and George Washington's doctor, what he said is that if we don't protect medical freedoms, then we can have a dictatorship that can completely collapse the structure of our Constitution. And so I think this is a really good time to stand up and start talking, amongst each other. And there's just so many things that we can do to really change the course of history right here. And I love peptides, as you guys know, and I love you guys. And so my ultimate goal, the reason I love peptides, is just because of the way that they help so many of you, and so many in my life and your life have changed because of them. So this is not the first time we've had where we've had to stand up for our freedoms and our rights, and it won't be the last. But I really appreciate you guys and everything you do. So if you'd like, I'm open for questions. You can plug anything in the chat box. And this will be, we'll get this out as soon as possible, because I can tell you my phone has been blowing up. I think the smoke comes from it at night. My wife's like, "Are you there?" Because I have so many of my colleagues who I've trained. I've trained over 100 doctors on how to use peptides, and so and then I have my peptide master class, and so everybody's wondering what's going on. So hopefully I got you up to speed. But how many of you found that helpful? Does that make more sense in the ruling? Is there anything else that might help shed some light on it? I think bottom line is, yes, we're going to be able to execute on your protocols, but on the flip side, we are looking for molecules that are very close to the peptides that the FDA said, hey, we need to make sure these are safe before you do bulk compounding, which is fine. And then, but the overall goal is to speed up the process in which the FDA reviews things. And if we can have the urgency that we did when we had the warp speed immunology for COVID, that would be amazing. There's just not the money on the line like there was then, but that would be great. So thanks, you guys. So challenge for the week. Thank you, Kelly, actually, for bringing up the savepeptides.org. So your challenge of the week, I'm going to have you go there and sign the petition. And this is a petition that will be sent to senators and your state representative, so that the FDA, it's like, hey, let us be free citizens in this society. And especially our medical freedom is, in my opinion, that's the core of all of our freedoms. If we lose medical freedom, we lose everything. And I think a lot of you probably experienced that. COVID wasn't a pandemic, it was a lockdown. And so we just can't let that happen again. And this is just one of those little things that slips in. And so, yes, we're fighting hard on the back end, but yeah, please go sign the petition. If there's any medical professionals in your circle of influence who are concerned about this, please give them my email, because we are creating a big coalition of doctors and pharmacists in our Go Wellness community. And then I'd love to hear any kind of feedback you've got. You can email us that feedback at Regan, REGAN, at acueastwest.com. And if you don't hear back from me immediately, it's because I've already got an avalanche of emails, and that avalanche just is going to skyrocket now that I shared my email. But I want to make this thing. It's going to be amazing on the other end. Is my promise. So you guys take care, and we'll see you next week, if not sooner. So I'll keep you posted. You'll be getting updates from me frequently. And by the way, forever, I know a lot of our clients have family, friends, and loved ones in Israel, and my heart goes out to you. So tragic seeing that. And so prayers and hearts are with all of you who are have any connection there. I think we all do, just as humans. It's why humans behave this way in 2023. I don't know, but I do know that your energy, your health, it matters, because and all the thoughts that we can put into that as well will be helpful. So thanks, you guys. Enjoy your evening, and we'll talk to you next week.